Hello friends, I'm Ty Nitty. Thank you for joining us on our second episode of Pegasus Training Forks. On our first episode, we talked about Western disciplines. On this episode, I want to talk a little bit about English, dressage, hunter jumper, hunt seat, eventing. There's a very easy delineation between the two. In Western pleasure, a good way to remember is low and wide. In English, high and tight. So again, low and wide for Western pleasure, where they get to drop their neckline down, drop the pole down, bend them at the pole, flex them out. In English, high and tight, where we gather our reins up here, keep our hands front center. Typically, our hands should be at the width of our hips, with our palms turned towards the inside. And this will give you an English setting. The way the Pegasus training forks are designed is to enhance both aspects, low and wide. It puts a little bit more pressure to drop that neck down. High and tight, bends that crest, pulls that pole up, and tucks that head in. That's what we want. This is Dorito. He's an 8-year-old Andalusian stallion imported from Spain. Dorito was trained traditionally in English dressage. Using a heavier bit as he got older, we weaned him down back to an O-ring snaffle, and using the Pegasus training forks to help him to keep that collection and aid us in softening up his mouth a little. He's a big horse. He's a powerful horse. If you can see his crest, he's got a huge neck on him. That's a lot of strength right there. How can we soften him up just using an O-ring snaffle? Well, that's where those training forks come into play. English is all about contact riding. Contact riding means we have direct contact from our hands to the reins to the bit in the mouth. So at no time when we ride English do we ride Western and leave a lot of slack down on the ground. We want to gather up our reins, center that head and the pole, and keep our hands high and tight. So now we're gonna ask them to move out. And again, at all times, I just want to make sure that I keep direct contact to the horse's mouth. And even when I turn left or right, my hands are never gonna come wide. It defeats the purpose of these training forks. So if I'm going to ask him to turn, I lightly pull up. Lightly pull up towards my shoulder. He wants to move forward. Now we got to be careful that we don't pull on this horse too hard, because if you do, you're going to set the stage for hyperflexion. That's what we don't want. We don't want this horse's chin to touch his chest. And ever so lightly, we're just going to encourage this horse just to turn for us. This is where we soften them up. Keep pushing them. Work them forward. An English horse needs to be a forward horse. When I ask him to turn, again, my hands are never going to move out of this vicinity. If you want a rule of thumb, they should never move away outward from your hips. That's a good rule of thumb to follow. Your hands should never be up here when you ride in English. They should be here in the same vicinity of your hips. So when I ask him to turn, I'm just going to lightly pull up towards my shoulder on that turning hand. So if I'm going to turn him left here, my left hand is going to go up right towards my shoulder, ever so softly. Now many of you are going to ask, why am I riding English in a Western saddle? Very simple. The rules never change. The rules of riding will never change no matter what kind of saddle you are on. And the reason I wanted to use a Western saddle is to demonstrate that these forks can aid you to train a horse into any discipline with any saddle. All it is hand positioning. English high and tight, Western low and wide. And we want to preserve on an English horse that crest, upward pole, which enhances that forward movement from a trot to canter. Even at a trot, when we're working this horse, where our hand positions and how steady our hands are, it's what's going to encourage this horse to hold that neckline. So whether it be an Andalusian, thoroughbred, Oldenburg, Trick-Hainer, any kind of horse that you want to get into English discipline with, these forks are going to help you tremendously. This is Bosley. Bosley is a 6-year-old thoroughbred. He's been off the track, so typical thoroughbred, a little high-strung, can be a little hard to handle at times. Bosley's in training for English and dressage, and one of the biggest things about Bosley was getting him to collect. Thoroughbreds typically running, especially running thoroughbreds, typically likes to keep a high head set. One of the things about Bosley was to bend him at the pole, elevate his neck at the same time, and give him a crest. And this is where, once again, these training forks have really played a very crucial role in Bosley's training. Once again, in English, high and tight on these forks. Bosley is that typical young thoroughbred, can be rambunctious at times. The things everyone, again, especially with a thoroughbred, is keep them soft in the mouth. We don't want to keep pushing this horse too hard or sore up that mouth too much. And again, very easy to bend them into a side pass. And again, help him put that nice bend into that turn. Very soft, very collected. Into that side pass. And one of the things about Bosley, and again, an attribute to this training forks, has helped him round himself off the track. He injured himself. So he had some pelvic displacement issues, muscle tear issues in the hindquarters. And by working them at a very slow pace, rounding his body off, actually helped him in a healing process. Collection is a very important aspect of training any horse, whether it be an English or a Western discipline, especially calming a hot horse down. Typically, thoroughbreds by a breed are a pretty hot horse. We can get this horse to be very calm, very relaxed, just by getting this horse collected. You can sit here all day and fight him and saw his mouth down, pull really hard at your knees. Instead, we use this Pegasus training forks, and very little pressure, I can get this horse to collect, round himself off, and actually pay attention to the rider through the bit. So once again, whether it be an Andalusian or a thoroughbred, there's really no difference when it comes to training. And the training ability of these forks will make every horse equal. So remember, low and wide for Western, high and tight for English. These training forks, every single time, will get you the desired results that you want in your horse. On behalf of Pegasus Training Forks and I, Ty Nitty, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.